Hello, hello, welcome. We're going to get started in just a minute. Thanks everyone who's joined us today. We're so glad to give this a second try for anyone who tried to join us last time. Just know we never give up. We're here to make it happen today. So Zoom is on our side. I can see everyone is joining us as planned.
Great. Thanks, Molly, for taking care of that. I will um, kick us off with some housekeeping issues. So, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us again. As Molly said, we encountered some difficulties with Zoom, and they have assured us it was on their end. So, every webinar today and going forward, we'll let you in. In the meantime, if you need closed captioning or translation services, Molly, if you'll progress the slide, I've created a picture to show people where they can turn their closed captioning on. I often do that myself. It helps me keep engaged. So you can toggle the button that says CC, and that will add captionings to your screen, show you what it looks like on the next slide. And this also works for people who need translation services as well. So as we continue to present information in multiple formats, this is one way that you can add the transcript to your screen. Okay. And with that, welcome to our webinar. Today we are here. My name is Brenda, Agenda Brenda, as I'm known lovingly by some, and I'm going to talk to you today about what we're going to talk about. So first, we're going to do some welcome introductions for the speakers on the call. We're going to describe the new Self-Direction Center and why we decided that that it was time for the center to emerge. We're going to tell you about the progress that we've made since we launched. And then we're going to share with you the results of our survey that we launched in August and September. We're going to talk a little bit about community, education, research, and advocacy. Those were the four themes. Then we'll move on to some next steps, what you can expect in 2026, and really save plenty of time for your questions. And with that, we'll do some welcome introductions. So today really, it kind of marks, doesn't just kind of, it really is an exciting day for the Self-Direction Center. Erica, Molly, and myself, they'll introduce themselves in just a second. We are longtime partners in advancing self-direction, and we've been lucky enough to work together on national initiatives. And as we started to think about what was needed most for self-direction, we decided to create this center. But we didn't want to just create another organization. We really want to create connection and community, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So please engage with us today at this webinar. You can engage with us afterwards. Our hope is to really grow and sustain self-direction more than just a program that exists at a state or a county level, but really a movement. And so, as we sat back and we started to describe our own experience, we really realized that together we have lived personal and professional experience in self-direction. And across the three of us, we've served a variety of roles, including
Self-directing,
Researching?
delivering training,
providing technical assistance,
Serving as a
develop,
family member
developing software,
and working as a support broker.
and working
and
with states.
yeah, and finally, really facilitating a national conference and conversations and delivering direct care. So, with that, let my fellow panelists today introduce themselves, and I'll start with Erica.
Hi, for a visual description, I'm a middle-aged woman with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair with a white flower in it. You can't see the gray in my hair because of my hairdresser, thank goodness, but hopefully you can see the little fun tinsel that's in my hair. I'm wearing a very fall outfit today, which includes a dark long sleeve teal shirt with a brown and teal and tan poncho over it. I feel like a good poncho is a very like Wisconsin fall thing. So as a we just tried to do in our introduction, my name is Erica and I have been in many roles in self-direction. I have been self-directing my own care for about the last 25 years. Yikes. I've also been a support coordinator in Wisconsin's IRIS program. We call them IRIS consultants. It's like a case manager. And then I also am a support broker in the Wisconsin self-direction program. And I'm just really excited to be here with you all today. Thanks.
Thanks, Erica. I can go next. I'm Molly Morris, and my personal connection to this work is I have a brother with autism, and when he was first diagnosed in the 80s, my parents were advised to put him in an institution, and they said no, thank you. So grew up in a context where, as a family, we were really navigating a world where HCBS was really underdeveloped at that point in our history. We've come a long way since then, but really fueled my understanding of real need for social justice work in disability, and went on to get my master's in social work. And I was focused on older adults in that work. And then it just kind of happened that the worlds of service for older adults and people with disabilities like merged right around the time I was coming into the scene. That's when Administration for Community Living was born, and it just made so much sense to me. And I was lucky enough to be at Boston College, where there are a lot of connections to self-direction, and fell in love with doing this self-direction work on a national scale. I've been lucky enough to work with these ladies for years and years, and so excited to be here today talking about our latest adventure.
Great. And finally, I'm Brenda Vitale. My own background in what I wouldn't have called self-direction at the time, but was working as a paid caregiver, and went back to graduate school also at Boston College, and ended up having the privilege to work as part of the Cash and Counseling National Program Office. Many of you also know me from my work at hcbs.org, which was part of the New Freedom Initiative and was the clearinghouse for all kinds of resources. And that really connected me to many of you and the work that we did. Most recently, I was also at Applied Self-Direction, and I've just been lucky to have so many different roles related to this work. And so now, as one of the co-founders, I'm really happy to see what is next for this movement. And I think I forgot my visual description, probably because it sounded a lot like Erica's. I read hers this morning and I thought it was mine, and I thought I don't have tinsel in my hair. But um, my visual description: I'm a middle-aged woman with shoulder brown hair, and today I'm wearing a tan turtleneck. So
I'm so sorry, I forgot mine too. I'm a middle-aged woman with blonde hair and a black turtleneck and a blurred background, so you don't see my mess.
great. Okay, so now I will continue this story and tell you a little bit about why a new center. So the Self-Direction Center really builds on decades of progress with self-direction. We know from the history of self-direction, um, actually, I keep the history book right here by my desk. The self-direction has a long history. There were there was work that happened in California around bringing people home and proving it was cheaper. There were so many different communities who loved this idea. But it really wasn't until the 1990s that the cash and counseling demonstration was able to help show outcomes. And so this center builds on the progress that happened at the National Resource Center for Participant Directed Services. Gosh, it's still a mouthful after all of these years. Um, and the work, that body of work that was passed down to applied self-direction. And so while applied self-direction will continue as a close collaborator, and they will focus on working with states and the FMS community, there was still a need for an organization that could offer more. And so now the Self-Direction Center will operate as an independent nonprofit. Achieving nonprofit status will provide the Self-Direction Center with this independent governance structure. It'll provide a place for public interest, mission-focused work, and access to critical funding, which will enable us to sustain and share ownership with the community. So, what are some of the reasons why? What are some of the ways that being a nonprofit can change this? We know that being a nonprofit will allow us to build an independent board of directors. We know that we'll have access to grants and donations and things and funding that can provide sustainability. We know that the center will continue to position itself as a trusted organization in this ecosystem. And finally, with this designation, we hope that there's sustainability for, as I already said, kind of this movement that is self-direction. But what we really want to do is we want to foster a sense of shared ownership from stakeholders, which includes people with lived experience, family members, advocates, and our other partners. And we know that with this tax exempt status, we'll be able to support and collaborate with national allies. And we appreciate so many organizations that have stepped forward already and said, how can we partner? What can we do together? And that sense of community is just so exciting and really driving the things that we hope to do next. So next, I'm going to share a super short timeline of what we've done in a short and long period of time. So since the Self-Direction Center officially kicked off in January, we were able to form with this initial leadership board. As I mentioned, you know, as we'll talk about in the next 6 weeks, we really hope to expand our board, and that's one of our immediate goals. But in January, we formed with this small board of directors so that we could put together our 501(c)(3). We incorporated in the state of Delaware, which is quite common for nonprofits. And the great news is that in early October that we heard that we secured our federal tax exempt status. So now we're really truly able to participate in those grants and donations and giving. Many of you have followed our journey this summer as we transitioned self-direction in the news, built a new website, found all kinds of new communication channels and ways that we could talk to each of you. And finally, the reason we're here today is in August, we launched a national survey where we asked each of you, hey, when you heard there was a new self-direction center, what did you hope they might do? And what's needed the most? And we'll present those findings a little bit later. And we know finally that in 2026, we will continue to offer educational offerings, find ways to build community, and so many exciting programming um, platforms and events and so many things. So with that, I would be remiss without thanking our sponsors. So when we launched this center, one of the first things we did is we went to some of our closest allies in this self-direction ecosystem and we asked them for foundational partnership support. And the names that you see on these slides have provided that pivotal role for us, helping to build the foundation, paying for the technology that we need to talk to you today, providing some of the early programming. They've just been here for everything. And so we're grateful for that. Their contributions are going to help us connect and amplify this community. We certainly are always open to having other founding partners at the table. And particularly, I would mention one of the things that we have created is something called the Catalyst Circle. And so for those organizations at the innovation level and above, they are part of a group of community that collaborates with us on policies and strategies about self-direction. They'll help us co-create educational materials and connect with each other as leaders in the field. And so if you're interested, if you think of an organization that might be interested or you work at an organization, please reach out and we're happy to talk to you a little bit more about that partnership. So, and with that, I will wrap up my introduction session and we'll talk to you a little bit more about the work that will happen next.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda. And thanks again, everyone who's here today. We're so excited to finally have this conversation. Um, I want to start by speaking to who owns and leads this work. We believe so deeply that when you look at the philosophy of self-direction, it's all about people with disabilities having control over their own lives. And the work of building out this model should have reflect that same philosophy, right? I think historically, having worked nationally in this space, certainly there has been engagement of people with lived experience on the national level. But I don't think we've really seen ownership at the national level. And we really want this organization to be built in such a way to allow for that ownership. So, one of the ways that we want to do that is, as Brenda mentioned, in the coming weeks, we're really going to be growing out our board. Right now, it's the three of us. We're the board. We kind of kick things off, but we want the full board to have at least 50% of the members of the board be people with lived experience self-directing. The majority of those people, we want to be people who they themselves self-direct, but of course also, lived experience with self-direction, especially in an IDD context, intellectual developmental disabilities is often a family member that's involved. So we'll have that good mix. But we also know that we need folks that are involved in many different ways in self-direction. So those will also be represented on the board. We also really know that we need more than just a board of directors. This is a huge national community, and we will have many leadership opportunities beyond the board. Another aspect of our leadership that we're kicking off is going to be an advisory council that requires a little less responsibility than being on the board, but engages people who have experience with self-direction, lived experience, professional experience, but people who want to help connect and uplift this work, as well as over time, we see ourselves using many committees so that the work that we do reflects this community. And so please be looking in the future for many, many ways to be involved. If you're here and you care about self-direction, we want you at the table in a way that works with your life and your schedule. So we really see this as being a community approach and just believe so strongly that we need everyone at the table, but we need people who are most impacted by this work, people who are living self-direction every day should be at the center of it. And, that centering of the voice of lived experience is just the drumbeat behind everything we've been doing. And we have kind of been thinking in terms of our work in terms of three C's that we really want to foster: collaboration, community, and collective action. And we feel like these are kind of the three pathways that get us towards our goals of advancing self direction. Really, as Brenda mentioned, like we really already leaning into partnerships, developing shared understanding across different communities as well. We know there are a lot of people that are in the overall home and community based services space that need to learn a lot more about self direction, and we want to engage with those folks. We also want to create and nurture community specifically and work together to make some change happen. And really just to put a finer point on what we mean by centering lived experiences, I think for those, just to describe a visual on the slide, we've created this visual where we have, a graphic where you have a circle with people who self-direct at the middle and at the center of our work. And these are the people who really define what success looks like. And, really leaning into and living this nothing about us without us. We need the voices of people with lived experience, but there are many other players that contribute to the system that we also need on board and part of the conversation to change systems. So we have a diagram showing around the circle different stakeholders that connect to this work. And we see ourselves really engaging all these different stakeholders in our community: policymakers and payers. That includes state administrators, managed care organizations, the financial management services and information and assistance entities that support self-direction, caregivers, technology providers, as well as researchers and technical advisors. We want to create spaces where we are connecting the dots across all these different groups so we can go further and make more progress towards advancing self-direction. And just to get a little deeper into some of our guiding values, I mean, I've already talked about centering lived experience, cultivating that broad coalition, bringing many people to the table. We also want to make space for bridging perspectives and in particular, not shying away from difficult conversations. I think there are some tough topics in self-direction, including, we're seeing a lot of some friction around paying family caregivers, with some states pushing back, while we know many people really rely on this. But there are a lot of thoughts and energy just even around that topic. And we want to make space where we can hear many different perspectives, kind of think tank style and really dig in and learn from those conversations about where we need to go next. Again, centering lived experience, but engaging folks from across the ecosystem. We know self-direction is sort of simple in concept but complicated in practice. And so what we want to build towards at the center is really sharing information about self-direction in a way that's, plain language, practical, accessible. And this is going to take us all working together because there are some complicated topics that we need to make easier and more comprehensible for anyone who wants to understand self-direction, whether that's somebody who's interested in doing the program themselves, or maybe a really busy policymaker who doesn't have time to sit down and read a 50-page report to try and understand the ins and outs of this model. We also believe really strongly in championing evidence-based practice. We're lucky enough that self-direction, the foundation of self-direction, is really built upon randomized control trial that was cash and counseling demonstration and evaluation back in the mid 90s and early 2000s. We continue to see research in self-direction, but we want to nurture and continue that so that we have the evidence base we need to grow this model. We feel also very strongly about respecting different group identities that are part of this larger picture. Even within people with lived experience self-directing, there are people who are self-directing for themselves. There are family members who are serving as representatives. There are many, different subgroups, as I talked about in that graphic, of FMS providers, states, MCOs. We know all these different partners need to come together, but sometimes also groups need their own space to kind of connect based on shared experiences to be more productive in those larger group discussions. So we really seek to balance the needs of disparate groups and bringing folks together. And another really important value to us is continuing to evolve as we learn. We're just human beings. We're going to make mistakes. We have made mistakes. We'll continue to make mistakes. And we really want to remain open to your feedback always, open to knowing that when we do community work, it is an imperfect process, and we want to continue to hear from this community about how to do better and how to make this a more open space for everybody who belongs at the table. So, with that said, I am going to pass things over to Erica to start talking more about the survey that we conducted recently.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah. We want to thank you all that put the time in and took the time to answer our survey. We really appreciate it. We actually had 302 total respondents, and we are proud to say that we have had representation either professionally or personally from all 50 states. So that was kind of big for us, and we were really excited about that. And so again, we just want to thank you for being part of this and answering when we called. I am a little surprised that the Midwestern Nice didn't come out a little more and we didn't win. I'm a little sad about that because usually we're all too polite to not do it, but unfortunately the Northeast beat my Midwest self in Wisconsin. So, but we just want to, just thank everyone who did do it. And we had a whole mix of people who with lived experience, families, FMS, support brokers, case managers, you name it, whatever title, and any person involved in self-direction. We did get a good mix. So here were the 4 key themes that we talked about in the survey. We wanted to know what self-direction means to you as a person filling out the survey. What were some opportunities that we could help to grow as a self-direction center? How could we help grow self-direction? What challenges and threats are there currently to the self-direction center? This is probably a bad time to ask about it because there's so many. And then finally, what is most needed from the self-direction center? Like, where can we be most helpful? Like Molly said, when you heard that a self-direction center was opening, what were you like? Oh my gosh, you have to do this. So we're going to start with what does self-direction mean to you? These answers just really help us to understand what people value most about self-direction. And as somebody who's been self-directing for so many years, these words and phrases definitely resonated and hit home with me. So some of the big ones were just biggest ones are also obviously choice and control, getting to direct my own supports, hiring and managing and directing my own staff, getting to set that schedule so I don't have to get up at at 4 a.m. when the agency can send somebody, and just being able to hire people that I like and I want to hang out with. Currently, Brenda is on my payroll. I convinced her to get on my payroll because we do so many conferences together. So I was like, what the heck? Let's get on it. And now Molly's having a little FOMO, so she's probably going to be getting on the payroll here pretty soon too. So I get to have that choice and control. Plus, I get to have control and boss them around. Let's be real. What we're really in here for? And then we have that freedom and dignity. So that, right, just freedom to live my life as I want. I can actually leave the house. I don't have to only get care in my home as many Medicaid guidelines require. I can be out living life on my own terms. I really can have my dignity and my freedom and independence to go where I want to go. And if any of you know me, you know that I don't like sitting still. Um, Inclusion and belonging, again, just really being able to be out in the world and participating in the community instead of like segregated into a institution or something like that. And then responsibility and partnership, um, just shared accountability, right? Because it is my budget that I control, and these are the people that are working with me and for me. So I have a lot of accountability. I have a lot of responsibility. But so does the system to help support me and making sure that I'm getting what I need out of the program. And then just remembering that it's a movement, not a model. So self-direction is really a philosophy. It's a mindset. It really requires that shift in perspective for people. If you've ever sat through one of my trainings that applied self-direction, you've probably done the perspective shift, but it's really just about remembering that people who have the lived experience, who are living their lives, do have the ability and are really pretty good at making choices and controlling their own lives. And we just need to remember that. And now we're going to move on to how can we expand and grow self-direction. One of the big things is really spreading the word, right? And making sure, like Molly talked about, having that plain language outreach. I mean, I'm telling you, 90% of the people I talk to, when they say self-direction, they're like, what's that? I don't even know what that means. And it's even people like my disabled friends. I'm like, oh, it's when you get to like choose your own workers, set your own schedule. And they're like, oh yeah, I do that, but they had no idea what it was called. So just really spreading the word and making sure people know that it's out there, that it's a possibility, and that it's really great and that it's working. Just simplifying the systems. Right, we're gonna just cut that red tape. I'm telling you, every year I have to prove that I'm disabled. I'm like, I don't know, what do you want? Like a picture of me in my wheelchair? Like, I'm not sure, but every year I have to prove that I'm disabled so I can stay on the programs. Today I got a letter saying, we're sorry that the letter we just sent confused everyone, so now we're sending another letter to unconfuse everyone, but probably the second letter confused everyone just as much as the first one. So we really need to just like cut through that red tape, unify and standardize definitions and titles and things like that. I mean, there are over 200 self-direction programs in the United States, and every single one of them calls everything different. I was an iris consultant, but that's also a case manager and support coordinator and this and that. And so we just need to kind of streamline things. And then we also need to professionalize that workforce. That was a big thing that people talked about, maybe training and credentialing workers, helping people retain workers. I just put an ad in for a worker, and either Brenda is super good at making flyers because she did help me make the flyer, but I got 43 applicants for that position. Amazing. I was so happy to have that many, but that was a lot of people to get through. So it's just, just trying to figure out ways to find people, maybe send those 43 people to other people who need them then also, and maybe building a national matching platform. How fun would that be? I would totally be in charge of that, being the matchmaker. And then just doing sustainability and innovation, right? Like trying some new things, maybe telehealth or life coaching, having those peer networks, because let's be real, we don't learn things from the case managers and support brokers. I learn my stuff from my friends. I call my friends and I'm like, okay, how do I get this? What do I do? What do I have to do? Having some hybrid models, things like that. And then really that equity and outreach, just extending to other populations like mental health, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, and those without family advocates, without people with unpaid supports, things like that. Just really trying to expand who can be involved in self-direction. Now we're going to move on to the biggest threats and challenges for facing self-direction right now. I mean, I could probably spend this entire hour webinar talking about that, but we're going to stay on the positive side and just hit the highlights. So obviously we all know that the biggest is the funding, right? With the Medicaid cuts, the policy swings, all of those things, it's really kind of scary, and it's really depending on the administration and any managed care transition. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Also, just things like that self-direction is hard to understand. Programs can just be so hard to understand with inconsistent roles, lack of clarity on roles. I mean, like I said, I was a case manager and a support broker in Wisconsin, and there are still things, and I'm like, I don't actually understand what you just said. The words that came out of your mouth didn't make sense to me. Also, just inconsistency, right? I have one Iris consultant that I'm assigned to that tells me, oh, you can't do that. Bad news for her. I know you can. So then I can argue. But if people don't know it, they don't know to, fight for things. Gatekeeping happens where coordinators just don't even offer self-direction because they decide, that's going to be too hard for you. That's too much on your plate. We're not even going to tell you about it. And that's not fair because people should be able to make their own choices for their own life. And then, as we already talked about, that inaccessible plain language info, things are not, oh my goodness, the like big language and words that come in these packets and in the paperwork I have to fill out is a little bit overwhelming sometimes. So, and then we all know that there are a lot of challenges with the workforce right now with self-direction, right? We have the low wages, we have the turnover, we have some delayed payments for workers. I mean, poor Brenda signed up, flew in from Massachusetts, let's just say, to work for me and didn't get paid for like 2 months because her, it just takes that long. And then, of course, her paycheck was the one that got messed up. So nice of her, though, to figure out the mistake so the rest of my workers got paid on time. That was really, really nice of her to do that. But and then that last challenge is public opinion and policy. There's just so many myths about fraud. You can't, you mention self-direction and people just immediately want to talk about the fraud that happens when in real life it's not. There is not more fraud in self-direction at all. Actually, there's less usually. And then a lot of programs are really losing that true meaning of self-direction by doing things that are not along the same wavelength. Okay, so let's get out of the negative and move into the positive of what's needed most. What do we want or need from the self-direction center that you can't get somewhere else? So one of the biggest ones was just a one-stop access for everything, really. Everything self-direction. Best practices, where we can find data, where we can find templates. Maybe you need a job description template, you need some interview questions template, all of those things. A one-stop shop for state program to get information and comparison to just help navigate self-direction, even just get started, right? Like, where do I start? Where is point A? Things like that. To have that advocacy partner so we can all be a strong national voice. I mean, y'all know I like to talk. Just really coordinating those policy efforts, busting those myths. I actually proud to say that I was invited to Ohio next week, doing a whole presentation on myth busting and self-direction. So we're going to be doing that. And then encouraging just collaboration across states, right? Like, why should each state recreate the wheel with self-direction when the state next door or across the country has already done it? We can help each other not have to start from scratch and be able to just learn from each other and get things. And then also providing tools and resources. So those practical standards, maybe some staff matching lists that I might be able to get to do. Just some accessible hiring tools like we talked about to just help you be successful in self-direction. And those just like really real life tools, not like this very overarching concept, but a straight up like, here are interview questions other people have used to be successful. And then the big one that I'm excited about is connection and community. Again, as we said, I learn everything I know from my peers, right? When I'm starting in self-direction or I'm having a problem with being able to do anything with my disability, I don't call my case manager, I don't call my doctor, I call my friends or I write on my Facebook group of other people with MD and say, hey guys, I'm falling over in my chair every day. What did you use to help support you? So just really bringing everyone together, but not only people who self-direct or people helping them self-direct, but everybody else in the self-direction community, FMS providers, support brokers, case managers, everybody, managed care organizations, because we all are stronger if we work together and get everyone's viewpoints. So the bottom line, we understand that the message is clear. Self-direction works. We all know it. I'm right here. I don't know why my camera just switched, but we're all right here. And they were trying to give you a bigger view of me being right here, showing, proving that self-direction works. People want it to grow, but also the systems have to help make it grow. We have to have systems that aren't stifling self-direction and cutting off choice and control. We also know that the Self-Direction Center is really uniquely positioned to connect, clarify, and defend this movement nationwide. We are here for the fight and we are excited to help. Now I'm going to turn it over to Molly.
Thank you, Erica. And I'm still going to be talking about the survey, but shifting from what Erica shared about the big picture about what people are seeing around self-direction and digging deeper into what you want to see us doing at the Self-Direction Center to help. And you provided feedback around four primary programming areas that we've identified after having dozens upon dozens of interviews with people leading to do this survey, which is the four main buckets that we see right now where we're implementing programming around developing community, providing education about self-direction, nurturing and supporting research into self-direction and how it's working, and having advocacy efforts to advance the model. I'm going to talk about some of what we heard from all of you in each of these four areas, but I just want to name that these programming areas are all very interconnected. So, something that we might implement, say a webinar series, is going to touch on all these different areas. So, with that said, let me first talk about community. When we asked you about community, people shared just how much they're really craving connection right now and needing to connect with others that are in similar circumstances to really problem solve, brainstorm, figure out how to get things done. Many of you are feeling pretty isolated and not quite sure where to turn for answers. I know there, a lot of questions out there, both in terms of specific programmatic questions about how do I make this program work for me, and also bigger systemic questions. And we were really interested to know what are people hungry for most in terms of format, and we really heard their strong interest in ongoing virtual as well as having in-person opportunities. So we really hear you and really resonated with some of the ways we've been thinking about nurturing community. So based on everything we've learned so far, and this will continue to evolve, our vision is really to connect the national community, bringing everyone involved in self-direction together to learn from one another, share ideas, strengthen the movement, right? So initial how we want to build that over time. One is really putting a priority on launching a virtual advocate network, connecting grassroots leaders that are doing such incredible, vital work state by state to help connect you with each other, learn from each other, compare notes. We want to help host regular community conversations, both, webinar, live, but also having some ways in which you can connect with each other online to have ongoing channels of communication for sharing ideas when challenges come up. A state might drop a new policy you weren't expecting, and having a space to go and ask other self-direction advocates, hey, has this ever happened in your state? How did you handle it? Immediate next steps we want to take to make this happen. Coming in December, we want to host probably at least two focus groups with advocates to hear a little more about how we can be most productive when we kick off programming in 2026. We'll see what we learn from the focus groups. What we're initially envisioning is having at least monthly calls where the advocate community can connect, have chance for discussion, as well as bringing in different guests who can help, brainstorm and problem solve around advocacy challenges. We eventually want to build upon that network to have online space to connect, as well as having a national directory of advocate groups state by state. So when someone is looking for a resource in your given state, we have a place to go to learn about all the different state organizations that are really supporting self-direction. And of course, our national conference, which Brenda will talk more about in a minute, really we see as very important to nurturing the overall community as well. Second big bucket of programming is education. What we heard from you about what's needed most is people want really practical, like not anything but like what we really need to get the work done, both in terms of self-directing better as well as designing self-direction programs better. Our top responses really centered on strong interest in solving common problems in self-direction, advocating for program improvements, and also just strategies for finding and hiring staff. Other topics that were important to people was how do we work with FMS providers and case managers, understanding rights, budgets, and rules. So it's a real mix of systems level education and just like practical information on effectively self-directing. Our vision, based on everything we've learned, is that knowledge about the model and about the system is power, and that knowledge should be readily available to anyone who needs it. It's maybe gotten a little better over the years, but there's a lot of hurdles right now to get easy, accessible information about self-direction. Our goal is to make it understandable to everyone, no matter where you're coming from, to get that context you need. Some of our strategies for addressing this area is over time to develop a robust library of plain language resources and how-to guides that really speak to not just kind of the 101 basics of self-direction, but really digging into different aspects of this model. Having learning that features peers as well as professionals, as Eric has emphasized, like that lived experience from other people who are doing this every day is is vital. We also know people learn in many different ways. Like we all have kind of the TikTok brain of wanting short, accessible content. So we really want to lean into presenting information in the different ways that people think and learn. So short videos, visuals. We want to get creative over time to figure out what helps people learn the quickest and most efficiently, and to have different modes of learning because everyone learns a little bit differently. And over time, we really seek to build a robust library. Our immediate next steps toward this 2026, we're going to launch a webinar series where we are regularly connecting around big topics in self-direction. I've got a list about a mile long of ideas for speakers and sessions that we want to do. We've also been working behind the scenes toward developing publications that really reflect most urgent and immediate needs on topics like the cost of self-direction, debunking concerns about fraud. And we also really seek to partner to curate the right resources with people. We know there are such incredible organizations out there doing very important work in self-direction. We don't want to duplicate. We want to combine forces and get all that work out there into the world. Third area is research. What we heard from you is that we need more data to help prove the value of self-direction for funders, for legislators, for administrators. What people would find particularly helpful is having more and more state by state comparison and analyses, understanding how self-direction works in one state or one program versus another, especially a need for research on the cost of self-direction, showing that it's either cost neutral or has cost savings. We have some research that tells us this, but we need more updated research. and also knowing the impacts on people's health. These are variables that really make an impact in terms of continuing to fund these programs. Also, research that's easy to understand. Peer reviewed research isn't necessarily the most plain language resource. And pushing for research that is co-created with people who have lived experience to ensure its relevance, to ensure that it really meets the needs of the current community. So our overall vision in the research area is really to act as a bridge between data and action, connecting the researchers, the policymakers, and the community so we do this well and we do it right. Our approach on this front is to, again, really lean into partnerships, develop more plain language resources on research and research findings, and also helping to facilitate more research happening and disseminating data and research findings. Immediate next steps, research is an area that we'll be digging into probably much more deeply later into 2026, but over time, we really want to build a national resource of all the relevant research on self-direction, really support those community-led studies and translate findings in a way that's accessible. And then our fourth, but probably most important area of focus for programming is advocacy. We heard you loud and clear that we need a stronger national unified voice in support of self-direction. Knowing that we need that national voice, also a lot of the important advocacy is happening on the ground locally at states. And so deploying tools that will help advocates on the ground be more successful, just being able to have talking points that have been effective in other states about self-direction. We know we get some of the same questions wherever we go with people who don't know about the model, particularly helping to counter myths about fraud and cost, nurturing opportunities for collaboration. And what you really said is that advocacy is our greatest opportunity, but it's also our greatest need. It's just such a hot focus right now. So our vision is to really connect grassroots advocates with that national influence and with local efforts to make system-wide change. So some of our methods are going to be having advocacy toolkits that you can use on the ground, being ready to have rapid response when there are emerging threats or issues. We were just on a call yesterday in a state where there's been some new unexpected policy changes where we're kind of trying to deploy our network to help respond, training for advocates to make them more effective, and engaging in collaborations with many national organizations that are already working to protect and advance HCBS as well as self-direction. Our immediate next steps, we've already mentioned, we're going to have an advocate virtual convening coming up and really work closely with national coalitions that are already doing this work and helping make sure that self-direction is part of the conversation. So I've talked your ear off about programming. I'm going to let Brenda now share a bit more about one piece of programming that we're very excited about.
Right. So I'll also invite all of you, please use the chat if you're, or the Q&A if you're starting to have questions about any of the programming or anything else we heard from the survey. But in the meantime, how can I not want to talk to you about the National Self-Direction Conference? So when the Self-Direction Center was formed and separated from Applied Self-Direction, we took two hallmark programs with us. One is Self-Direction in the News, and hopefully that's in your inbox every Friday. But the other one is the National Self-Direction Conference, and that it really is the one nationwide conference where the only topic is self-direction, right? The ins, the outs, and it's really also important that it's a gathering that connects people who self-direct and program administrators and industry leaders who work in software and FMS and support brokers and just that whole ecosystem that Molly talks about. We all get together. But here's some changes that are going to happen. We're going to keep the energy that we had when we last left off together in Baltimore, and we're going to collaborate and connect, and we might just sing some more karaoke, but we're going to carry that to a new location every year. And so the first location that we're bringing the Self-Direction Conference to is Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we're going to be there May 27th through 29th. One of the other changes is that we're hosting this year's conference at the University of Minnesota campus in the McNamara Alumni Center. It's beautiful. I can't wait for you all to see it. So, in addition to this new location, we also want to rotate the conference nationwide. So, in 2027, we'll be in a city near you, maybe. And so, with that brings the second change, which is that we will now make a commitment that this conference will be annual in person rather than every other year as it had been in the past. Some other changes for this year that you can anticipate is we have some enhanced community involvement. We have a committee that's going to present, help create the agenda. And we've extended the programming. We've added an extra day to the conference because it just wasn't enough the last time. And so that'll really give us this chance to both focus on emerging trends, challenges, and solutions. So what you can expect next is we really hope that in the next few weeks, we'll have two things out. One is the tickets, and the other one is the call for proposals. We Monday, we're going to be announcing opportunities for sponsorships and exhibitors, which I really want to highlight also is an opportunity where we have travel grants for individuals who self-direct to join us. And so you'll be hearing from us on Monday with all of those opportunities. So, what else is there besides the conference? There's a lot. So, what's next? Let me tell you about our near term priorities and then how we will accomplish those. So, we know based on the survey results that really it's important to launch this community and education programs in early 2026. We will continue to scale our research and our advocacy collaborations because that cannot happen alone. We will build these partnerships like we talked about because we do not want to duplicate what's out there. We really want to complement. And then we will continue centering people with lived experience in these initiatives. And so the hardest part for us is this pace and our partnership. We know that you want everything yesterday. We do too. We feel that urgency. And so, but we know that when you work in community, it takes time to do it right. And so this small but mighty team is committed to that. But we really welcome your feedback. We welcome volunteers, people who want to be part of this journey as we prioritize getting programming right. And so please continue with questions if you have them. We'd love to hear more from you. Um, what resonates about what we said about this vision? Tell us if there's other things that feel really urgent to focus on first. How can we best support you? And if you don't have that today in the chat, if it comes to you, later tonight during dinner, please send an email and we'd love to talk to you. So with that, we'll start to turn to some of the questions that we have. So
Well, I'll just say first, I want to acknowledge Becky Thomas, one of our phenomenal state administrators out there in New Jersey, is saying, the movement, not a model. Can that be a bumper sticker? I would love that. That's such a good idea. I'm back here saying, when are we going to get a t-shirt? So maybe that's on a t-shirt someday. Someone else also asked if we at some point are going to share a little more information on support brokers. Erica, I wonder if you want to kick that off, and then Brenda and I are glad to contribute, being that you have experience as a support broker. You seem the natural person to talk about it. I also noticed someone raised their hand. The way we're set up today is you have to submit your question in writing in the Q&A pod. If you go to the bottom of your screen, there you should see when you click on more on the far right of your Zoom menu, there is an option to open the Q&A pod. So, or also email us. We'll share our email in a second. Actually, I can go ahead and put that slide up so you have it. But Erica, go ahead. Why don't you talk about support brokers?
Well, that's pretty wide topic, but funny enough, yesterday I was just in a meeting of a steering committee. Some of you may remember it. It was one of the sessions at the gosh, what would that have been? 2024, I think, conference, right? The
Yeah.
in-person conference where we had a big meeting of support brokers, and out of that came a steering committee, and we are starting to try to do some things to spread the word on support brokers. So things such as quarterly webinars just on what is a support broker, what would be roles for a support broker, involving people with lived experience to be in those roles and things like that. So and one of the questions was, how could that organization, the Support Broker Steering Committee, then work with the Self-Direction Center to get the information out. So stay tuned. There is probably more things coming about support brokerage. If you had a specific question about sport brokerage, though, can feel free to reach out to me. But
Well, let me just add on to Erica that I know state by state, it really varies in terms of what the supports for self-direction look like. So in some states, we see support brokers, but in a lot of states, the job that a support broker fills of really coaching someone on how to self-direct is often filled by a case manager. We find sometimes that's really hard for case managers to take on. So it's again, it's a whole area where I think we can do a lot of work to talk about what's the best model for supporting people in self-direction. I think we all are of the opinion that a support broker type role is going to be a lot more effective, but that's a conversation we could dig into much more for another day. I see we have a ton of questions. I Oh, so many great questions, but I wonder, Brenda, if you want to take the one about the virtual option for the conference, because I see someone's disappointed, but we're not going to disappoint you. So go ahead, Brenda.
Well, two things. One is that we really hope to continue education throughout the year in our webinar series. The second thing that we cannot completely finalize and announce, but one of the reasons that we moved to this center is because it does have recording capacity. And so we really do hope to be able to offer the content in a virtual format for people once the event has concluded. Um, so that is absolutely at the top of our goals. We hear you about a virtual connection. And I will just add one of the other reasons for us that we wanted to move the conference around the country is we know what a commitment it is to travel. And so we do hope that at certain years it will be close enough to someone who doesn't maybe like to be on a plane but can make something locally. So those are our two enhancements. We're working really hard, and I'll just put a plug to secure a sponsor that will allow us to get the recordings to happen. We moved to a center where that can happen, and we really agree with you. We think that that is a priority. So thank you for saying that here in the chat and mentioning that.
Just to say on the conference really quick, someone just
Yes.
submitted a question. Is the conference in Minnesota something that would benefit our company? We are an independent living center with consumer-directed care and veteran-directed care. Will there be workshops for those programs? I have some thoughts, but I'll let you answer it, Brenda.
Sure, absolutely. Well, two things. We've tried really hard to always have a nice representation of different sessions on all of the topics. Veteran directed care, as you know, right now is a growing program, and I cannot see a world where that will not be one or two of the breakout sessions. I think the other thing that I would say is as the agenda grows, the real magic happens in the hallway. It's the people you meet, the other state administrators that are trying this, the FMS that works in this area. So I really do feel like the ways, I really think that there will be such rich conversation in both of those topics, but I would just reiterate that that's also an opportunity for call for proposals. If you think this is something that should be talked about, put a call for proposal and maybe we build a panel around it too, because other people probably have these questions about veteran directed care. There's so many calls about support brokers. I can't imagine that that won't be a topic, right? So all of these questions I actually see as potential breakout sessions at the conference.
Awesome. Okay, so many great questions. I'll just start going in order here. All sounds fabulous. I'm curious to know if any of the results from the survey surprised you. This is an interesting one. Erica and Brenda, I don't know if anything jumps out at you guys.
Well, I'll tell you the importance of community. We had been talking to a lot of people and talking to them about how we felt like people needed bite-sized nuggets of information and TikTok videos, and everybody was yes, yes, yes. And we also had said, and I bet everybody wants a podcast. And that showed up as a lower priority, and webinars went high. And so we shifted when we heard that feedback, right? We said, okay, the community wants webinars. Let's try that. It doesn't mean we won't do a podcast someday, but it just didn't become the first thing, the first piece of programming that we went with out of the gate.
I'll say too, it didn't necessarily surprise me, but there's something just that hits, I don't know. Just emotional and seeing all of the responses from people who, 300 people, when you look at the open-ended responses of people talking about what self-direction means in their life, it just hits you right in the heart to see the incredible impact of this model. And I think the feeling that that gave me is a feeling that we want to help foster more broadly for people to really understand the impact here. Um, we have too many questions and not enough time. I'm gonna I'm going to just really quickly, Sean has a great question. Do you have any perspective you can share about self-direction for people with psychiatric disabilities? Um, Brenda and Erica, feel free to chime in, but I will just say here that we think there is incredible innovation that's happened in the space of self-direction, particularly serving these populations. And this is a group that we have a lot to learn from. We want at the table and is part of this family, this ecosystem that we're trying to bring together. So thank you for calling that audience out because it doesn't get brought up enough. But this is a really innovative section of the self-direction universe where great things are happening. And we need to have a lot of work to do to help make sure those models grow and proliferate. But Brenda and Erica, anything else you'd say to Sean's question or any final thoughts?
No, I think you captured it. And I'm over here answering people as quickly as we can. Please know that we do get the transcript of questions, but if you ask the question anonymously, I won't know what your question, I won't be able to answer you. So if you do have a question you'd love to talk to us about, please send an email to hello@theselfdirectioncenter.org. Um, and we will absolutely get back to you with some of these great questions. So we are so grateful for everyone's time. We could not do this without you. We look forward to staying connected and we're very sincere. Please join the mailing list or send us an email to continue this conversation.
All right. Well, thanks you guys so much. Mitzi, I see your comments. So excited. We're excited too. More to come. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. And we'll see you next time.